Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first lunch break. We are super excited to have you here. This is going to be really amazing. It's our very first lunch break. We are going to be hosting these conversations every weekday at noon for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
We have them planned through the end of April until further notice, right? Like we're not even saying until when. Hopefully, once things normalize, we will be doing these once a week. But for now, they will be happening every weekday because we need them. And so we are really excited and thrilled to welcome you all. This, just to give you a little bit of context, these ideas came from a desire to really give back and participate in our community and sort of be in service with what we have to offer. And there is so much wisdom and so much hope and so much talent and just joy in this community. And we really wanted to share it with the wider Facebook community and the wider public. And so here we are. And today we are having a conversation with three amazing comadres on how to stay focused through a shift. And clearly the shift today is the mother of all shifts. We are in the middle of the mother of all shifts. And so
A collective shift.
Yes, the collective shift. And also like, I think like that'll be interesting. We'll get into that, like the collective versus the individual and our little worlds and how we're living it. But I want to take a second to introduce everyone. So we are going to start with Mariana Lopez. Mariana is a catalyst for self-discovery and healing. Mio Santana is a transformational coach and the founder of the Divine Journey program. And we have Shweta Osa, who is a conscious leadership and business mentor. Welcome, ladies. And so we wanted to, there are so many things that we do in our community that are very uniquely comadres. And we wanted to bring that flavor to our official first kind of, online event for the public. And so we're going to kick it off with a question that's very comadre. And it's like, briefly, let us know about one thing that you're feeling grateful for today. Popcorn style. Take it away.
That's a great one because I just finished doing my gratitude practice for the day.
Good.
And you know what's funny? I said, the first thing that came to mind was I'm grateful for the clothes I'm wearing.
Good.
Like something as simple as having clothing, nice comfy t-shirt, nice comfy jeans. And yes. I just felt that comfort. So that's the first thing that came to mind.
Good. That's lovely.
I am incredibly grateful for my home. It's a place where I feel very, very safe. And it's like I can close the door and it's like I can create this bubble. And I am always forever grateful for coffee.
Yes.
Do you have enough of it right now?
Yes.
Yes. It's important to share. Yes. Shweta, what are you feeling grateful for today?
Oh, just today I'm totally grateful for this time. This time and the solitude, and the permission that we seem to be needing to give ourselves to just breathe. Just the space to breathe. I'm so infinitely grateful for that.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That is a beautiful place to start. As you can see, this is the reason that we chose these women. Although there's quite a few women in the community that are very grounded and are in a hopeful place. I think there's no coincidences, and there's no coincidence to why these are the women that are going to guide us through this conversation. And it's interesting. We kind of came up with the idea of staying focused through a shift from a place of the fact that a lot of people are seeing this time as an opportunity for themselves. And again, opportunity could be anything, right? Like it could be an opportunity to rest. It could be an opportunity to like enjoy themselves. It could be an opportunity to find inner peace. It could be an opportunity to give back to their community. And for some people, it's an opportunity to write the next best-selling novel. Some people, like there's different kinds of focus. But I also would like to start this conversation. And again, this will be a conversation. So anybody watching, we have Esther watching, anybody watching, please feel free to add your comments. I'm monitoring them here. We will be talking about them and bringing you into the conversation. But I wanted to start the conversation with the word compassion. Because what we are living right now is unprecedented in the planet, at least in the last century. And I think it's important for us to bring to ourselves some compassion, even as we set intentions of focus. And so I just want to like open up there's no specific question. It's just like, what is that bringing up for you right now when I say that?
Yeah, well, for me, something that came up when you were talking about focusing on opportunities. When this first happened, when we first started experiencing this whole change of everything that was going on, and we saw that we were going to have to self-isolate, and we saw how it was growing and growing, I kind of froze. I freaked out and I froze. And it was like, what do I do? Like it was difficult to decipher what to choose to do, like what avenue to go on, because it was a different horizon. It was a new, whole new world that I've never experienced before. So it was like, which avenue do I choose? So there are probably people right now who are thinking, what is it that I focus on? Because they might not be seeing the opportunity that some of us see of like, oh, I get to write my book now, or I get to sit down and meditate, or I get to, practice on something. They might be thinking, what is it that I get to focus on now? Like, I have no idea, because, I felt that shift, and so something that was really beneficial for me, and you talked about compassion, was actually the practice of gratitude. And we all talked about something that we were grateful for today. And the practice of gratitude really helped get me centered in the present moment, which I think we could all agree is like where creation starts and where we can begin to really cultivate what we want to do next.
Yeah. Shweta,
yeah. So something, when you were talking about compassion, one of the things that came up for me and that I have been seeing over the last few weeks with amazing women that I work with is part of what Mio said. When all of this started, everybody kind of fell into this place of, this is an opportunity to do so much. Connect to people, be online, give to the community, make yourself of service, make yourself present. And through all of this, there reaches a point where it feels like, but what if I'm not able to do all of this? What if I'm not able to do all of this because there is something more pressing that is calling me right here, right now, in my body, in my life, right here, not out there. And then to find a way to be compassionate to yourself and say, it's okay. That is where you are going, then that's where you're going. And I find this space of really just standing feet down and breathing, taking a really deep breath and holding yourself, like literally just holding yourself, hugging yourself and holding yourself and saying it's okay, makes a very, very big difference. Just this deep hug in the morning is very grounding. It's like, I am here. I'm here. I'm doing what I need. And this is where I am right now. And that's okay. And that just helps bring everything back into focus.
Yeah.
Well, what I want to add mostly is, for me, compassion is a daily practice. It's not something, I think we go to judgment much more automatically than we do to compassion.
Yeah.
I would even take it a step backwards and say, the first step would be awareness, right? Like awareness of, how am I feeling? Where are my thoughts? Where are my feelings? Have I walked back and forth from the bathroom to the kitchen 5 times and done nothing, and have that moment to pause and say, okay, wait, what am I going to choose in this moment?
Yeah.
So, for those who already practice compassion, it's it's kind of like, let's fortify it, right? Let's heighten that compassion. But for those people, for those who it's new, who it's there's a newness to that, or they're learning to choose compassion over judgment, or compassion over fear, you know, etc., to be gentle with themselves. I'd say that the first step is to get present, right? Through a breath, through a hug, through just physically stopping and like looking around you and, you know, counting whatever that is. And then through the breath, slowly connecting into like to the heart space. And that's where you're going to find that compassion, that caring, and being kind. Like, I feel like another word for compassion is being kind to yourself, being with yourself, as if you were a newborn baby in a way, right? Like, you wouldn't expect a newborn baby to start walking immediately, right? So why is it that I am expecting myself to like shift ball change so quickly in this moment of, you know, quote unquote unprecedented times that we love to use so much?
And I said in that, I think on that vein, I'd love to take a few steps back together, and because I feel like for a lot of people, yes, these concepts might be familiar. They may have never been in a situation where they have this space to practice them at the level that we have the space to practice them now. I have been feeling like very, very intuitively, like moments just seem so much more powerful lately. And I think it's because I am much more present to them. And I also remember when these were all incredibly novel concepts and I had no idea how to be present, you know, the first time I ever heard that. So in case anybody's watching and they are like, okay, so what is this whole thing about being present, and how am I aware of what's happening? Because I agree, Mariana, like that is where we start, because we need to know what is it that we're being compassionate about. And so like, let's take a step back and talk about how we bring awareness to our feelings, our state, just energetically where we are. Like, what would you ladies recommend to somebody who is brand new to all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a really good point. And one of the things that I always like to tell my clients and people that come to me for this is when you're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future, you're either depressed because you're lamenting past mistakes or past things that you could have done differently, or you're having anxiety because you're thinking an anticipation of future events that haven't happened yet, that don't exist.
And I think it's fair to say that second one is high on people's lists right now.
It's high right now, exactly. So what happens is I try to compare it. I'm using a metaphor of two legs. Like, you have two legs standing. If one leg is in the past and one leg is in the future, who's standing in the present? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that gets you to the present moment is looking around you and, like Mariana was saying, taking a deep breath. Shweta also talked about breathing, but also like looking at what's happening now. Am I okay now? I think we were talking yesterday and they were like, I'm okay. So am I okay now? Do I have food to eat now? Am I, whatever my state is now, check into that state now and just take inventory of what you have now. And again, I go back to the gratitude. I always bring people to gratitude because it's like, pick 5 things that you could be grateful for right now, even as minuscule as they might be. I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I had a phone call with a friend. The most minimal things that you could find, because what tends to happen with the mind is that we tend to go towards what we don't have and what's wrong immediately. So a lot of people tend to wake up in the morning and that's the first thing they start thinking about. But at that moment when you wake up, instead of just going towards what you're worried about, think about 5 things you could be grateful for. And that'll start shifting your mental state in the present moment.
So one way is just a simple, try to make a list of 5 things you're grateful for at this moment. And just being here, right? Like acknowledging that when you're worrying, it is about something that has not happened and that is like in the future. So at least like acknowledging, even if you're doing it, acknowledging that is what is going on, right? Okay. What else, ladies? How else can people who are kind of becoming conscious of the concept of awareness and presence access it?
I know what I'm gonna say can be very scary for certain people, especially if you're just being introduced to these concepts, but it really is stillness.
Yes.
It really is just stopping, like just that pause and that stillness, like in your tracks, right? Like just stop in your tracks, stop, whatever it is. Like put the phone down, put the book down. If you're walking, literally stop. And what I like to do personally is I like to focus on my feet. Like I like to take my awareness down to my feet. And until I feel that I am, quote unquote, fully back into my body, right? Yeah. Slow down the thoughts. I've slowed, and that is, and going back to what Mia was saying, that incorporates the breath as well. Slowing down the breath, et cetera, until all of a sudden, like I wiggle my toes in my shoes, or if I'm barefoot, et cetera, until all of a sudden I'm just like, okay, I came down, yes. Right? I came down, and now that I am fully here, that I've taken this pause, now I can choose to respond. Now I can choose to, write my list of gratitude, it's et cetera. But it really is about starting to find and get comfortable with stillness.
Yes. And for people to understand that that's something that they can kind of build into gradually, right? Just the same way that somebody we're not going to ask you to meditate for an hour for the first time that you sit down. It's something that you build into gradually. I have found that in silence and stillness is every answer I could ever want. Mm-hmm. And I love the physicality of what you were describing too. Maybe for some people they'll feel it in a different spot, but I'm also very much like roots sprouting from my feet, go. Like it's like that's what I know for sure, that I'm starting to be, that I'm grounded and that I'm here. Shweta, you have something you'd like to share?
So one of the things that like what Mariana said, when somebody's just starting out, stillness seems like a very foreign idea. And it also seems very, almost kind of scary if you have not started on that. Most of us are so used to being around something, right? Talking, touching, reading, thinking, whatever, that being quiet becomes very challenging. So if you are in that spot, then how do you get to this place of awareness? Yeah. And one of the things that I like to suggest to the women that I work with really is, you always are able to see where you are in motion. When we started, Mariana started with this example, have I been pacing between the bathroom and the kitchen 5 times, right? You are always able to notice what is the behavior that you are doing. You don't have to do anything weird or foreign, but you can always notice what is happening. And most of us, if we are in some form of business, work, housekeeping, whatever, our antennas for observation are very high. So we can observe. Hey, I've been waking up and just guzzling pots and pots of coffee without even thinking what's going on. Yeah. Not that I don't need a cup of coffee, but it's like,
maybe not 10.
Right, okay? Or I have been just pacing, or I have been like walking in and out, or, my hands are, we can always observe. And when you observe a pattern within you, pause. You can always pause. You don't have to be still. You can always pause. And just take really good 3 deep breaths with your hand on your belly. Yeah. That's it. It's only 3 deep breaths. You're not doing anything crazy, but just pause. So I think this becomes, again, couple of things happen here. One, you really start training yourself to observe yourself, which kind of leads you into that space of awareness.
Yeah.
So important.
And then all you have is hold your belly and take 3 deep breaths.
And that grounds you, yeah.
And it's very doable, right? It's very doable. But then as most, like, those 3 deep breaths holding your belly really bring all your energy in to you, and then goes down into sprouting the roots. but it really helps consolidate, like really deeply consolidate.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. I love the very, like, these very specific ideas. I think it just helps people get there. And so, and like also compassion for yourself through this process, right? Because especially if it's new for you, like we're sitting here talking about things that we've practiced for years. So just like acknowledge that, you know, and we struggle with it too, right? Like we have to bring ourselves back on the daily to the practices and to the awareness. And so having, you know, maybe having people around you, maybe you know somebody who's into this stuff, that you can talk to them about it, that you can, they can hold you accountable to just trying to, like, you know what, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths and hold my belly every morning. And if that's all, like, that's a great start. Like, it's a great and important way to start, because the key thing, that the thread that we want to make clear here is almost like it starts with awareness. And in that awareness, you're going to see, oh, I feel sad. Oh, I feel grief. Oh, I feel frustrated. Oh, I feel anger. And like, you start to make space for those feelings. And then you add compassion to whatever the situation is, whatever you're actually experiencing. And that is all truly kind of a prerequisite to then step into, okay, so how do I focus on the thing that I like am feeling called to? Because you get to start with a gentle, kind space for yourself for whatever it is that you're going to create, if it's going to come from a good place that's going to serve you. And so kind of shifting into that, into the topic for today about how we focus through a shift, I feel like maybe it'd be interesting to start talking about how would we know what that focus is, you know, like, and I mean, for me, it very much comes from stillness. And because I've been meditating regularly, the moment that this all started to happen, I literally felt like, maybe not literally, but very much felt the fire under my ass to be like, oh, Gabby, you get to step into your power. You get to lead. You get to do all these things. And it wasn't, it didn't feel like heavy. It didn't feel like pressure. It felt inspired and exciting and in flow. And for me, because I've been on this kind of cycle several times now, I've learned to move through it with support, with asking for help, with community, with setting clear, right, expectations for myself about what it is that I want to create. But again, as I said before, this might be a cycle that's inviting people to more peace. It might be a cycle that's inviting people to more enjoyment or more rest or all of the above. So I want to make space in this conversation, not just like to focus through doing, but it could be being focused on being, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so maybe let's start with how we even become aware or clear about what we should focus on. And I'm using should in quotations because we're going to dissect that word now. But
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is, if you think about it, guys, this is a new frontier for millions of people in this country. This is a whole new frontier. Like, people, if we think about our Western society and what we're used to doing, Western society is go, 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 do. I'm on all the time. I work, 12-hour to 16-hour days. I don't have time for anything. I don't have bandwidth. I have an agenda and a to-do list that's back to back from 8 a.m. to, midnight. Like, this is the type of lifestyle that millions of people lead in this country. And so now, with all of us sitting at home, it's literally like a whole new frontier. People are completely fish out of water. Like, what am I supposed to do now? And so the whole aspect of creating that moment of pause is actually what creates the gap between the anxiety and the stress and the nervousness of where I am to the gap of where I want to go. And it creates that little wedge in the middle that gives you that space to have a clear thought, to dive into your heart and think about what it is you want to do, and actually have
we're all collectively living the pause.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Cool. Thank you. Mariana or Shweta, do you have anything to add about how we identify that focus?
So for me, these times are very interesting, and I do think that it's really, really personal. It's very personal to each person, and everyone has their own reality and their, you know, and their own set of circumstances. The first thing would be to not compare yourself. For me, it's to not compare yourself to what anybody else
Huge.
is doing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's
totally.
actually perfect. Like, it's actually a perfect example. Like, you know, Gabby sat and she, you know, her guidance or her higher self told her, go and do all of these things and da da da. I the exact opposite way of like, you get to like go deeper underground and be even quieter and stiller and go more into your practice, and I trust that eventually, you know, whatever it is that I'm meant to do, I'll do. And so for me, and in this 2 weeks, it even happened. It was like, okay, I love what everybody else is doing, and I support that. And in whichever way I can help with that platform or with those ideas, I will. But because somebody else is doing it, doesn't mean that I need to be doing that, right?
Yes.
I think step one is don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself to the person who said, I'm going to write the best novel. And you're like, I don't even know what I'm making myself for breakfast, right? Like, step one is that. And then the other thing is what feels good. What
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that you're that like the other, what was it? The other, like literally I woke up and I wanted to open all of my toiletries. And like, I mean, and it was just like, and I woke up and I did it, and I felt so good while I was doing it and afterwards, and I found all these things and da 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 da, and it was just like, oh cool, I cleaned out. Right. So for me right now, there's a period of like, all right, clean out, right? And it's kind of happening on a collective level of like cleaning house, right? In that sense. And so don't compare yourself, and then follow what feels good, because if you go back to before, if you do the pause, like Shreda's pause, right, and you do the 3 breaths, you'll start to notice what inspires you and kind of puts a smile on your face, and what all of a sudden just feels very daunting. I would very much start trusting that.
Yeah.
And the last thing for me is one day at a time. Just for,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you choose that, if you're gonna rest, if you feel like resting, okay, just for today, I get to rest, and
Yeah.
stay from judgment because of that, you know. And maybe tomorrow you'll wake up and you're gonna want to start training for a marathon, whatever. But like, let it be just for today. Like, just for today, just for this moment, I'm gonna binge Netflix.
Yes.
And when I find inspiration, you know, maybe I'll write my blog,
Yes.
or whatever that is. So those would be my.
And I wanna add, there's a couple things to what you were saying. I feel like there's something very important that needs to be said out loud, and it's that I think this is one of the things that I hope that we come back from and we reevaluate, because as a society, like the 2 experiences that you just described, right? Like what I've been inspired to and what you've been inspired to, our society only values what I've been inspired to.
Mm-hmm.
Our society only values productivity, like getting shit done, hustling. And I do think that there's a very real reality that a lot of people are living right now, if not most people, where they feel a sense of urgency in doing all of that because of the financial and economic reality that we are all living. And so I think that there's like, and it like all feeds itself. We go back to awareness, right? Like, it is a place of privilege to be sitting here and being like, what do I feel called to? And let me like go off and do what I feel called to, because there's a lot of people that just have to do what they have to do. But at the same time, I think like for all of us, it would be good for us to just know. And that if you are feeling called to rest, you just rest as much as humanly possible, and do it with the urgency and the importance that you would give the work and the hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stop letting the outside world dictate the importance of what you are feeling intuitively is important for you. Yeah.
Exactly. And like up until now, productivity has been like valued the most, but with this shift that we're all experiencing, we're now going to see how these things that we're talking about today, about creating inner focus, connecting to the present moment, knowing yourself, knowing what you feel, those things are going to start becoming priorities. And it's interesting that we're experiencing this collectively, because now we get to create a new earth, like Eckhart Tolle's book. We get to now create a new dynamic of what works for us and what doesn't work for us.
Sorry, I just want to add something, Gabby, that came to mind. And even if you are in a position of like, oh, you know, crap, how am I going to pay rent next month, right? Because there, as you were talking about before, the slowing down and the pause of that, the just bringing the nervous system down and getting present, that is, going back to what Mia said, that is where we can start to create solutions for ourselves. If we keep going at that velocity, right, like that franticness, and we're not present and we're just kind of spinning our wheels around and around and around, then we might be missing, you know, we might be missing that solution that's like right there in front of us, that could solve that can solve for that. So I just want to add that you know
that's huge. I want to take a pause because I want to make sure that people understood that, is that like the way out of you feeling like you're drowning is in you making room for what your intuition and what stillness is trying to bring to you. And that is huge. Like, it needs to be like pointed out very clearly.
Because I see it, right? Like, I mean, I see it on Instagram and I see it, and she's like, yeah, meditate, self-care, you know, this, that, and the next thing. And like, hey, I'm all for that. And then I also, you know, I'm also very aware of, you know, other people's circumstances that perhaps, you know, they don't have the luxury of saying, oh yeah, no, it's okay if I don't work for 2 months or 3 months, or until this passes, I'm just going to practice my yoga, you know, in that sense. And I'm very aware of that, and I have a lot of compassion for that. And these tools are still serve you like in that, right? Like what we're talking about still serves you in that sense of, hold on, let me stop, let me get present, let me write what I'm grateful for, let me take 3 breaths. And now that I've calmed down my nervous system, let me see where I can find the solution, or for support, or who I can think of that might be able to help me, or an idea might pop into my head. But we need to be in that state, right? Like, we need to be able to bring ourselves back to that state of stillness and presence in order to even listen to ourselves.
Yes.
You know, Mariana, adding to what you said, that space, even if it's not necessary for you to be able to have 2 months to relax and do yoga, but you do, and it is not even necessary that you have to work to bring food on the table. You don't have to be on either of those extremes. Even if you are in the space where you love what you are doing, even in those spaces, it is all of this, you know, in the bigger picture of scheme, when we think about it, all of this situation that has been created right now, and we talked about it, as Gabby said, you know, everything is valued for the ones who go out, hustle and create productivity, but the ones that go inwards, the external world doesn't value that, in a sense. And when we are saying, well, both has a space, and we need to be guided by what our intuition is saying, in a very different language, if we talk about it, then it is really about each one of us understanding our guidances, our buttons, our reactions, and how we navigate ourselves through that space with the tools that we are able to get, right? So it's no more fight or flight. It is no more outside or inside. It is what I need now, but then I have it. Doesn't mean I have everything. I might know, hey, I need to call a friend. but I know that knowing that I have to reach out for the support that I need, this is like, in a huge way, every one of us, in the smallest way and in the biggest way, are now being called to step up into this space of leadership. This leadership where we get to be in command of ourselves. Doesn't mean the command is go win the whole world and, you know, push the other person down, but it is in command of yourself. Like, take the time to know yourself. And
it's a very different kind of leadership, right?
It's a very different kind of leadership. You know, it's leading you. It's knowing you and leading you. And that is really where every one of us, I mean, every one of us is meeting there. And we all who can draw on this years of work, education, learning, whatever we want to say, we are kind of stepping into that and doing that. And there are so many who don't give it a label, but they are still doing it. And then there is everybody who is being called on doing this. So there is nobody who is left out of here.
Yeah.
It just is, everybody's asked to lead in a very different way. And that different way is lead your own self.
Exactly. Yes.
Lead your own self. And it starts with awareness, starts with a pause, you know, starts with moving forward to looking, how do I focus? And that comes to this place of, there is no should, but each one of us has our own priorities.
Yes. Yes.
And so what are those priorities that either you have set or you have set because you've been guided to set? And then staying true to that.
Awesome. And that's a perfect segue to moving to kind of the next part of our conversation, because I feel like we've had a really beautiful discussion about what needs to come before, right? Like how we build self-awareness, how we add compassion to that, how we make space to understand where we get to focus right now, and also understanding that that could change. It's not a static thing, right? But like, let's say that you're here now, you're in this place where you're like, you know what, I really want to, argument's sake, I really want to, I've been afraid to show up online, but I really feel like right now I'm feeling bold and I want to start a YouTube channel and I want to like start being more visible in the community and kind of sharing what I know. Let's say that that is one example of an area of focus, because I know the women who we've gathered today are women who there's so much wisdom to share from that mindfulness and present space, but they're also women who are, these women are powerful manifestors and powerful achievers in their own right. And so putting on that hat for a minute, especially because I would love to have a conversation, especially considering like everything that's going on, how then does one focus right now? I will share an example. I'm realizing that I may have to source, so my father very generously, while we were still like seeing my parents, came and brought like his old ass computer for my son so he could use for schoolwork. Turns out he can't do video on it. Like it's too old, he can't use it. So right now, when my son starts school next week, like I'm gonna be like on a schedule with him. Like he's using my computer, I'm using the computer. Oh, you have an extra one? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna take you up on that. See how things happen, you guys. You just have to say shit out loud.
You manifested it right now.
Genius, amazing. But in that same way, people are, there's a lot of juggling going on right now.
Yes.
And in addition to a lot of juggling, there's a lot of crazy expectations that we're putting on ourselves. And what, like, I don't know if you've seen the especially for the parents, they have these like calendar, like an hour by hour calendar, and I would like to meet the person that has actually executed on this freaking calendar and work from home. So there's crazy expectations. And I think that we're not stopping enough to think about adding some perspective and some, again, grace to what's happening. But even kind of in light of all of that, you know, if a client came to you and said, hey, like, I want to get some stuff done, I really feel called to it, I'm inspired into it, I'm not feeling an external pressure, like it's real, it's mine, and I know I get to go out there and grab this and like do some important things for myself, how do I carve out the time and the space for it, and set realistic expectations for it?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Gabby, because actually that was one of the takeaways that I wanted to give today, which was routine. And routine is so important. We're creatures of habit, human beings. We like to have a routine. And through this time, when it first hit, you're sent home, and yeah, you may have those days of just complete, you know, disconnect and sleep for 48 hours straight because you're so exhausted from the last, you know, from January to now that you need it. And that's okay, have compassion for that. But once you wake up from that and you start getting focused on what you want to do, routine is going to be so important. And we're so used to, as a society, having it placed on us by exterior factors, like work is from 8 to 5, you have to be on this conference call, you have to pick up your kids at this time, you know, like it's so you're so used to being like kind of like a ping pong, like where you have to be and why you have to be there,
particular hours, or
now
everything.
Now you get to define what your routine is.
Yes.
And so some people are like, but what do I even do? It's as easy as setting, okay, I'm going to wake up at this time, and then from this time to this time I'm going to do this, from that time to that time I'm going to do that. But it's really tricky because going from one completely different routine to then doing your own routine, it's really tricky to even get a hold of it. So one of the practices that I've implemented and that I've actually supported some people with implementing too is that, like, timeline track yourself. So like for the first couple of days, get just like a notepad on your screen on your phone and track what you are spending your time doing. Okay. So then you can start becoming more aware of where you have leaks of time and leaks of energy that are going out, and you can adjust for the next day. Okay, from 12 to 2, it took me 2 hours to make lunch. Okay, wait, let me adjust. Tomorrow, it's going to take me an hour to do lunch, you know? Yeah. And compare your routine that you designed with what you're actually spending your time doing.
The reality. And
it'll start syncing. Yeah. And then you start creating empowerment for yourself. And then you start waking up every day, like focus, like saying, okay, now today I'm going to do this, this, or that. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take, I love what Shweta was saying about leadership, creating a new type of inner leadership. It's going to take maybe a redesigning for a lot of people, a rethinking of what I get to do. And something that I wanted to mention is that, like, consciousness, this is something that my mentor says, consciousness is our new currency. Yeah. Like, money is not an exterior factor. Money comes from within. Currency is something that we create from what we have to offer from within us. So if you want to create currency and create money and create abundance in your life, look into your consciousness. Your consciousness, the mere fact that you have a brain and that you could think and that you have tools and desires and skills that you could give to the world, that is going to get you through and to the next step that you need to take. But you need to be able to go inside and figure out what those things are and what your consciousness has to offer, because we all have something to offer, and we all get to pivot right now and kind of maybe offer something that we're not always used to offering. Maybe the accountant turns into an artist, or maybe, you know, the teacher turns into a speaker, or, you know, it depends on what's needed now in society. But with that shift, we get to really see how to redefine ourselves, and we have to go inward to find that.
Okay. So I hear setting routines or rituals, and just sticking to them as much as possible. I would also add, like, even adding a lot more wiggle room than you normally add to those routines, right? Mariana, go ahead.
Yeah, I did, like, just set yourself up for success, right? So if you've spent the last week pacing from your kitchen to your bathroom, right? You're most probably not going to wake up tomorrow morning and be like, yes, from 9 to 10, I will do this. From 10 to 11, I'm going to do this, and right? Because that's like, no. So yeah. Like, set yourself up for success, and and have it be fun, right? Like have it be fun for yourself, in that sense. Like have a creative brainstorming session, right? And like have that be for an hour, and then I let it go, etc., etc., etc. And the other thing that I want to add is like, we've all said, oh, if only I had time to do this.
Oh yeah,
I find
totally.
another part of all of this I just find so ironic, right? Because like the human condition, and we always blame time, and I don't have time, and I don't have time. I'm doing all these things, and now that we do have all this time, a lot of people are freaking out because they don't know what to do with the free time. And so on one hand, it's like, okay, what if you just wrote down all the crazy ideas you've had since the beginning of time, that you've said, oh, I wanted to do this, and it could be house projects, it could be your own projects, business projects, you know, something that you wanted to learn, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then pick, what I always say is like, pick the lowest hanging fruit off of that.
Yeah.
Like start somewhere. So going back to what Mio was saying, you start to build confidence and you start to empower yourself, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I can totally clean out my closet. Oh my God, yeah, I could totally like repaint this part of my house. And then all of a sudden you finally get to that like big project that might be scaring you right now. And the other thing that I want to add with what you were saying, like, oh my God, let's say that right now, you know, I'm inspired and I want to start my YouTube channel and this, that, and the next thing. Awesome. From there, reverse engineer it and start with step one.
Yes.
Right? Because what usually happens too is that we have this idea, and then all of a sudden from like, hey, I want to just a YouTube channel and I want to go live and I want to talk about, you know, yoga. Then all of a sudden the monkey mind starts. I need a logo. I need a brand. Where's this? Where's that? How many am I going to do? Et cetera, et cetera. And again, you freeze, right? You've created this mammoth, and now you're just like, okay, this is like so big. I'm just going to go back to pacing from the kitchen to the bathroom. And so I always say that, like, reverse engineer it and start with step one. Make one video. Make one video and have fun with it. You know what I mean? Like, and don't, especially when it comes to online and Instagram and Facebook, don't take it so seriously, right? Like, we're not Harvard professors here, you know, like in that sense.
And
right?
like you said, don't compare.
Yeah, and like don't compare it. It's like, all right, cool. And again, check in. That was fun. I had so much fun doing that. Awesome. I want to do it again.
Yes.
Right? And not so much on the result, but on like your experience and your journey through that, and you overcoming your fear, overcoming your doubts in that, and being able to share knowledge or an experience that I'm sure is going to serve somebody out there. You know, it always does.
Awesome.
So something I want to add, you know, Gabby, you said once you figured out that you would like to do something, whatever that thing is, how do you stay focused to do it? And adding to what Mio said and what Mariana said, I would like to just go one step back, I think, is when you're figuring out what you want to do, figure that out with your priorities, like with your priorities about how you want to be, not what you want to do.
So true.
Because you may end up finding that what you want to be can be achieved through multiple different do's.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay? And this is something, you know, I'll share, like Gabby started with her own experience. So I'll share my experience here. The beginning of this year, I had said that my word for this year is going to be. That was my word for the year. My word for the year was to be and to own. Okay? Little did I know what the heck I was talking about. Now, with this last 2 weeks that have gone on, I had plans. I had amazing plans. I have had people that are holding me accountable, and I felt pressured into showing up with that accountability and integrity. And yet, with whatever happened in the last 2 weeks, two things became very clear for me. One, my existing clients needed me a little more than what they have usually needed me. And I have a young kid who has amazing support from school, but her school needs her to do things creatively, and she needs me for nature walks and for making things and whatever, you know. And it became very, very, very clear to me that in the focus of my do, I was, in the first 2 days, like I was going crazy on everybody around because I was not able to do my list, right? And it took me 2 days and to say, okay, my words, like, what is it that I want to be? And I want to be contained. I want to own my space. I want to be present. And I want to be happy. Like what Mariana said, I want to be peaceful and I want to be happy. And so what is in my way of my do? It's only my brain telling me that I'm not showing up with integrity, right? And so once I kind of let that go, I started projects that I have only had in my wish list, okay? And I am doing them. And I would have never done them because I usually would have focused on my do list. We started a garden. We brought plants. We painted pots. We set up and created a whole bunch of things in our backyard, right? And I'm still doing creative work. I'm still showing up, and I'm still being through all of this. So the priority, what is your priority? Yours could be different, you know,
Yes.
whatever it is, but make time for your priority, but don't get hung up on the ways to reach that priority because your do's might change. And they will be completely from the left side.
That is a massive point, especially right now, because I feel like the hows to everything are changing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the do's to everything are changing. Go ahead.
No, to Shweta's point, intention setting is so huge, you guys. I think this one, if we rewind back to the beginning, like it's so important. I'm so glad you mentioned this, Shweta, because setting your intention for what you would like to see, like your wish list per se, or like how you would like to feel, is going to be your North Star. It's going to be your navigation system through all of this. So like Mariana was saying, does this make me feel happy? If one of your intentions is, I want to feel happy every day, then whenever you're going to do something, you ask yourself, is this making me feel happy? Okay, no, it's not. So let me revert and do something else that makes me feel happy. Or is my intention, you know, more family time? Is my intention to grow my business? Is my intention to feel more connected to the Mother Earth? You know, whatever those intentions are. I have a practice that I do every year where I pick 5 guiding principles that I choose and I keep throughout the entire year. And so as the year goes on, I always refer back to those 5 principles and see, or priorities you can call them, and see where I am. Or also if I'm going to take on a project, or if I'm going to take something on, I compare it to those 5 principles. Maybe something on a more micro level that people could do now is pick what are my top 3 intentions right now through this time, and like keep those intentions like on a paper somewhere written down, and then you refer to them whenever you're about to make a decision or just feel into what you want to do. You can base that on your intentions. Living with intention is the key. If you have your intention set from the beginning, then you can navigate more clearly with your North Star, knowing where you're going.
Yes. I want to just read, because Janine shared earlier, I think Mariana, when you were speaking, she asked about her coach friend calls that when your gremlins come out, things that have stopped you in the past. So being conscious of that. I feel like this conversation around how you want to be is really important. Another way that you could phrase it is how you want to feel, which is something that everybody can understand and relate to and very clearly define. So I have my 5 words right here, you guys.
Awesome.
Joyful, free, authentic, supported, and secure.
Yes.
And every single day I like have it on my little lamp here next to my computer. I look at it every day, and I am being especially mindful that the way that I'm going to get to all those feelings today may be very different than the way that I've gotten to them maybe 2 months ago or 3 weeks ago. And I think that's the biggest lesson out of all of this, is just understanding that we're living a moment that is very unique, and adding a lot of compassion, and coming from a place of being a place of compassion, a place of intention to yourself, even among everything that you're living. Because like we spend so much time talking about that, because it's like when that is solid, that's when you get the inspired action to do the things. That's when you get like the clarity and the self-compassion to say, like, you know what, maybe in the past I've time blocked 3 hours. From now on, during this quarantine with my 2 kids at home, I'm going to time block 30 minutes. Yeah. And I am going to throw myself a party, and I'm going to have some Haagen-Dazs dulce de leche ice cream to celebrate that I worked
the little moments. Yes.
Like 100% being like just a lot more, like you can continue to do the things, but we all get to like release the expectations and release the pressure that it has to look like what it looked like before. We are literally in a moment of breaking down old paradigms.
Yes.
So the more that we embrace that for all of us and for ourselves, I think the less resistance there will be to this moment and to whatever this moment is teaching us all and individually.
And we're not going to know how it looks like Shweta was saying. It could look like a million different ways. But if you have your intention set, like Einstein has a really awesome quote that I always use that says, the same mind that created the problem is not the same mind that's going to create the solution. Mm-hmm. And so right now we're thinking, we might be having the same thinking cap that we had on 2 weeks ago, like you said, about how to solve our problems. But right now we may need to solve our problems differently to get a new result. Yeah. So giving us the space to create that new horizon, to create that new gap in between, will give us the space to have those new thoughts.
Any final thoughts you'd like to share, ladies? Final words of advice or wisdom, briefly.
I think Shweta wants to say something.
Go ahead, Maria.
No, go ahead, please.
The one thing that I wanted to, if there is only one thing, and one thing that I can have as a takeaway from here, is the most amazing navigation tool, emergency tool, $1 million tool, if you want to say, that you have, that anybody has in their back pocket to bring themselves back into the focus, is your breath. It is your breath. We don't have to go anywhere to buy it, to get it. There is no pranayam lesson you need to take. You have to do nothing. All you have to do is soften the belly and take a deep breath into that belly, and then exhale. That's it.
I want to point out that you just answered Linda's question. Linda said, what advice would you give to those who are so overwhelmed that this kind of practice to calm would actually be unrealistic, quote unquote, now during an overwhelming time? Linda, we talked about this at the beginning quite a bit, but I would also add, there's that meme that says that if you don't have like 10 minutes to meditate, you need an hour. And so it's like, I think that we need it now more than ever. And so there are lots of ways that sort of stillness and calm can look like. It doesn't just have to look like you locking yourself up in a room for a full hour of meditation, right?
It could be a walking meditation.
Yeah.
It could be a song.
So there's, and I also want to add, especially to Linda, overstimulation. Right? So like, okay, like I can't meditate. Why are you asking me to meditate? What is that? Leave your phone. Leave your
Turn off the TV and the news.
Off the TV. I said it the other day, like all of our nervous systems, whether we want to admit this or not, we are all in fight or flight mode, you guys. Like we are all in hypervigilance, right? Every time you walk out of your house, you're like, did I breathe something in? You know what I mean? Like, and it's natural. It's natural. So if you are very sensitive, or you're very empathic, or it's just like all of it is very overwhelming, or it feels very much out of control, turn off your TV. Like leave Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of those things alone. Go do your walk, like Mio was saying, because breathe, like get curious about your breath, like not even meditation, just be like, oh my God, what's the temperature? Just breathing. What does this do in my body? Look, my chest is expanding, my chest is contracting. Wow, like how cool. What happens if I breathe through my mouth? What happens if I breathe through my nose? Like little things like that, just to start getting your nervous system to come down. Because here's the other thing, like this isn't ending anytime soon. Like there's so much time, you know what I mean? There really is, and it's a gift. Like there's a part of like this is it's a gift, and if we start to look at it as in this is happening for us, for our humanity instead of us, it starts to feel a little bit like there's a different sensation in that. And if right now you're in the phase of, oh, am I breaking up?
No, you're fine.
Okay, if you're in the phase of overwhelm, respect that. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. There's time to get to the other things. The quarantine is not gonna be lifted at the end of this week. Like that's based on evidence, based what's happening in different countries that have been going through this before we have. You know, we've got a good 6 weeks ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen. Like I'm gonna go ahead and like put that out there. So like, whoa, slow it down, USA, you know, like in that sense, because it's going to take a minute. It's gonna take for all of us to adapt, for all of us to adjust. To start to be able to, like, there are so many questions that don't have answers right now by scientists, by doctors, you know what I mean? And so it's that moment of like, okay, I don't know anything, and so I'm going to back away from it, because what I know is that right now I'm safe, I'm not missing food, I have my breath, right? And how do I want to feel? Exactly what Shweta was saying. Okay, I want to feel peace. Okay, let me find that within myself. Let me remember. And even if you're like, I want to remember a time, just go back to your summer vacation. Like,
when did you last feel peace?
Time travel to like when you were feeling peace, and then your body will remember it, and all of a sudden you'll start to feel that.
Wonderful. And guys, last thing for me is surrender. Surrender. When you're overwhelmed, when you don't know what to do, when you don't know what to choose, when your anxiety is through the roof, just put your hands up and just surrender and just say, you know what, let it be what it shall be. You know, like choose a higher guidance. If, you know, whatever God you pray to, or whatever higher power you can access, or even just access your own inner higher power. Surrender at those moments, because what you resist persists, as Carl Jung said. So if you're resisting and you're like in this anxiety, you're going to just continue to create that state. So if you just surrender and release, then you'll create that space. Like speaking to what Mariana was.
I feel like we can do a whole one of these lunch breaks just on surrender.
Oh my gosh, all day.
Hold on, wait, really quick. What I want to add to Mio is, and if you let go and it gets messy, right? And you're just like, I gotta go, and it's messy. Let it be messy.
Yes.
Stack up plates on your sink for 3 days. God, go do it.
Let it be messy.
Like,
beautiful.
Let it be
yes.
Especially
yes.
sometimes it's like, oh my God, I can't. Let it be messy. It's messy. It's okay.
And if you have trouble with that, call me, because somebody told me let it be messy like in October, and I've been working on it since then. And now I'm like, oh, I let it be messy now. Look at me, how messy I am. Had like # former control freak.
Yes.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. I want to say deep gratitude to Mariana, Mio, and Shweta for all of your help and all of your wisdom, and just for sharing with us today. And again, I want to remind you that we're going to be doing this every weekday at noon. On Monday, we have a lunch break on creative self-expression, which should be super fun. So look, everybody was just like, so that is Monday at noon. So grab your food, bring us to your kitchen, whatever you like, and join us. And again, thank you so much. If you would like to contribute to the Las Comadres community or to any of these incredible women here today, the details in order to do that are in the post. Thank you so much. We love you, and we'll see you Monday.